My name is Luther Chandler, and I've been gardening and studying resilient food crops for decades. Today, I want to show you something that completely changed the way I look at food security, drought resistance, and what modern agriculture chose to forget. There is a seed that contains more protein than beef, survives where corn fails, and grows with almost no water at all. 5,000 years ago, it fed entire civilizations living in one of the harshest deserts on Earth. By the 1950s, it had almost completely disappeared. Not banned, not illegal, just quietly erased. This seed was replaced by crops that require 10 times more water. And now, as the American Southwest runs out of water, we're paying the price. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what this survival seed is, why it was pushed out of American agriculture, and how you can still grow it yourself today. And I'll explain why this forgotten superfood may be one of the most important crops for a future shaped by drought and climate stress. But before I reveal its name, you need to understand what ancient desert farmers knew thousands of years ago that modern agriculture has ignored. Long before the United States existed, long before European colonization, indigenous peoples like the Tohono O'odham, the Hopi, and the Pima thrived in the Sonoran Desert. This is one of the hottest and driest regions on Earth. Summer temperatures regularly rise above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Annual rainfall is often no more than 8 to 12 inches. Most crops cannot survive here. But these cultures were not just surviving, they were thriving. Their secret was a small, humble bean known as bawi, often called the desert survivor. For more than 5,000 years, this bean fed millions of people in conditions that would destroy modern agriculture. It required no irrigation, no fertilizer, no pesticides. It was perfectly adapted to extreme heat, poor soil, and limited rainfall. These were not primitive farmers experimenting randomly. They developed sophisticated agricultural systems built around this single crop. It was their primary protein source, their staple food, and their guarantee of survival. When Spanish explorers first encountered these desert civilizations, they were stunned. They could not understand how people were producing abundant food in what looked like a wasteland. The answer was always the same: this remarkable bean. So what is this miracle seed? It is called the Tepary bean, spelled T-E-P-A-R-Y. Its scientific name is Phaseolus acutifolius, but indigenous farmers simply knew it as the bean that never fails. If you have never heard of Tepary beans, you are not alone. Most Americans have no idea this plant exists, and that is not an accident. Before I explain why it was deliberately pushed aside, you need to understand what makes Tepary beans so extraordinary. From a nutritional standpoint, Tepary beans are a powerhouse. They contain between 23 and 25% protein by weight. That is higher than most cuts of meat. When combined with corn or squash, they form a complete protein, exactly how indigenous peoples traditionally ate them. They are high in fiber, rich in iron, packed with complex carbohydrates, and have a low glycemic index. This was not just survival food, this was optimal nutrition. The flavor is rich and nutty, more complex than common beans. Indigenous cooks developed hundreds of recipes using Tepary beans, including stews, soups, roasted beans, and bean flour for breads and porridges. Entire food systems were built around this one seed. In the early 1900s, American botanists and agricultural scientists began studying Native American crops. They were amazed by what they found. Tepary beans could complete their entire life cycle with minimal water. They thrived in temperatures above 100 degrees. They grew in poor, alkaline soils where most crops failed. They resisted pests and diseases that devastated common beans. The University of Arizona conducted trials. The United States Department of Agriculture took notice. Research papers were published. For a brief moment, during the 1920s and 30s, it looked like Tepary beans might become a major American crop. Then everything changed. By the 1950s, Tepary beans had almost completely disappeared. Seed catalogs stopped carrying them. University research programs moved on. Agricultural extension offices stopped mentioning them. Farmers who continued growing Tepary beans were labeled backward and outdated. Within one generation, a crop that had fed people for thousands of years was nearly extinct. Why? Because Tepary beans did not fit into the emerging industrial agricultural system. Tepary beans require only 8 to 12 inches of rain to complete their life cycle. Common beans require 10 times that amount. Corn requires even more water, along with heavy fertilization. Tepary beans fix their own nitrogen. They improve the soil instead of depleting it. They need no chemical fertilizer, no pesticides, and no irrigation. They also allow farmers to save their own seed year after year. That is a problem for industries built on selling fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation equipment, and proprietary seed. At the same time, Tepary beans were disappearing. Massive federal irrigation projects were being built across the Southwest. Billions of dollars were invested in dams, canals, and water infrastructure. Why build all of that if drought-adapted crops already existed? Because profit depends on dependence. A crop that makes farmers self-sufficient does not serve an industrial system designed around constant inputs and corporate control. Today, the irony is painful. The Southwest faces historic water shortages. Rivers are drying up. Aquifers are collapsing. Farms are failing. And the one crop perfectly adapted to these conditions was pushed aside. Indigenous farmers who were mocked for growing Tepary beans are still producing food, while industrial farms around them struggle. Thankfully, Tepary beans never fully disappeared. Traditional farmers kept growing them. Seed savers preserved them. Organizations like Native Seed Search collected and protected varieties that might have been lost forever. Permaculture growers, homesteaders, and climate-conscious farmers are rediscovering them today. Modern science is now confirming what indigenous knowledge already proved thousands of years ago. Tepary beans rank among the most drought-resistant food crops on Earth. They are now being studied again for climate-adapted agriculture. And the best part is this: you can grow them yourself. Tepary beans are completely legal to grow anywhere in the United States. They thrive in hot weather, prefer poor soil, and require very little care. Plant them after the last frost, give them full sun, and let nature do the rest. In about 60 to 90 days, you will harvest a protein-rich, shelf-stable food that can last for years. This is not theory. This is real food security you can grow in your own garden. If you believe more people need to know about crops like this, subscribe to Garden Life Studio right now. We share practical gardening knowledge, forgotten plants, and real solutions for growing food in a changing world. Share this video with anyone who gardens, prepares for emergencies, or cares about food independence. And tell me in the comments, will you grow Tepary beans this season? This is Luther Chandler, and I'll see you in the next video.